Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Blessed Brokenness podcast. I'm your host, Crystal, and our mission here is to bring truth, light, and encouragement to as many women as possible, helping them to realize who they are and allow them to tell their story while leaving them ridiculously hopeful for tomorrow. You guys, welcome, and I'm so excited to be here today to introduce my newest guest, Miss Tyra Berry. Tyra is an
Uh,
amazing woman of God. She is just such a bright light. Like her smile is just beautiful, and whenever she smiles, it just lights up your world. So I'm gonna let Tyra introduce herself. Let's back up just a second. I know Tyra through meeting her at a spa day that we had for a local group here in Charleston, and we were left in the room together. Like she said, the two introverts were left in the room, and we just kind of started talking and kind of clicked and, like really connected then. And then the Lord laid in my heart to ask her to share, and she gladly said yes. So, Tara, I'll allow you to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tyra Berry. I'm actually the owner and operator of the Beauty Lounge in Monks Corner, South Carolina. And what I do is I actually make women feel beautiful while maintaining a healthy mane on their hair. So I do all things color, cut, styling, textured hair, straight hair, blonde hair. It doesn't matter. I do it all. I am also a leader of the Gold Slayers tribe, and I'll tell you more about that at the end of the podcast. And I am a mom of three amazing children, two boys, two dogs, and one bonus daughter. And that is a little bit about me.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, guys, if you've been listening to the Blessed Brokenness podcast for a while, you know that I like to turn every episode with an interview back over to our Father and just allow Him to just come in and sit with us and partner with us and, just that thing. So, Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this beautiful day. Thank you for this amazing, beautiful sister that I get to sit here and chat with, Miss Tara. Lord, thank you for the stories that are on our hearts today. I ask that you take these stories and put them into the hands of other women to turn them around so that they can see the hope, the truth, the life, and the love that you have for each one of us. Father, any woman that's listening today, open her heart, open her ears, and allow her to be receptive of the truth that's being displayed, the truth that's being spoken, and allow her to see Jesus in us. And Father, we thank you so much. And Holy Spirit, we just ask that you come in, guide our words, guard our hearts, and just open up this whole podcast for anyone that might need it. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen.
Okay, so Miss Tara was sharing with me her story right before we got on. I like to chat with my guests a little bit before we jump in. And she's got a story, and I'm excited for you guys to hear it. So I'm going to turn it over to her and let her have the mic.
Awesome. Awesome. So, my name, of course, is Tyra, as I already said. I'm a little nervous, so I'm sorry about that. However, I know one of the things that Crystal wanted me to talk about was a time where I was broken. And one thing that I can think about was I was back in 2013. I had experienced a very traumatic car accident. During that time, I was actually going through a separation at the time, and I didn't know where my life was going to be headed after marriage. And so, um, after the accident, I was actually out of work for about 12 weeks total. And throughout that time, I had just started working back at a corporate company. And they said that I wasn't qualified for health insurance. So here it is. I'm laid up, can't go to work because I broke my foot, and no income coming in because at the time I'm separated. So of course, you could imagine what's going through my mind, but being the person that I am, I don't like to take no for an answer. And so I began to read the policy manual. about what happens in this situation. And being that I had level jumped to a senior designer, so there was different levels of designers. So I jumped to senior designer, and that allows you medical and coverage. So because I had level jumped 7 days prior to my accident, my insurance coverage started on the day that I jumped. So what that meant was that I was covered under insurance, first thing. And the second thing was I was going to be able to receive disability insurance while I was home. Well, fast forward to the time that I'm home, at that time, I had I think my son, 2013, he was 10 at the time, and a 7-year-old at home who needed to care for their mom who was in a wheelchair. So I would keep the wheelchair upstairs and the walker would be downstairs so that I'm able to maneuver throughout the day. But of course, you can understand that I was the primary caregiver. I was the one that had to cook for them. I had to make sure they got food if they wanted to go outside. Like, I could not do all of the mobile things that a mom could do if she had all the use of her limbs. So during that time, I had to realize that God put me on my back for a reason. And I remember being on my back on the chair. And at this time, TBN was real big then, and it was a convocation with Bishop Paul Morton was on, and there was a minister by the name of Brian Carn that came on, and the word that stuck out to me that he said that night was, if you express, he will send it overnight. So if you can imagine, I'm laying on my back, looking up, and I hear him say, if you express, meaning if you express your praises and your worship to God, he's going to send whatever blessing you need overnight. So if you can understand, I have not been working. I had not received my first disability payment at the moment yet, and I had to buy food, and the lights were about to get turned off. So I was like, okay, I'm going to express, and it's going to come overnight, whatever it is. I don't know what was going to happen. So the next morning I got up, I was like, okay, so since I'm sitting in this house, let's just start doing some spring cleaning. So, you know that junk drawer that you got in your kitchen that nobody ever likes to go through?
Oh my goodness, that junk drawer, yes.
So I went through the junk drawer and I cleaned out the junk drawer, and I found it was an escrow check. And the escrow check was dated back in February. And I opened the check in August.
Wow, I had money and was just sitting on it, right?
It was just sitting right there. And I said, well, God, I guess this is what you meant. If I express, you'll send it overnight. At least I thought that's what it meant. But at that time, that's what it meant. So put a pin in that word express, okay? So all in all, I was able to pay the light bill and purchase my kids some food. But I also purchased one of those, what was those ovens called? It was like the convection oven, but it can cook a rotisserie chicken from frozen
This
to...
is a rotisserie oven. Was it the rotisserie oven?
It was a rotisserie oven, but it had a cover and you just turn it on. So anyway, I bought that for the boys because they could cook whatever they needed to cook in that little convection oven, because it was just a touch and play, and it's done. So I bought that for them because they were able to cook like their corn dogs or their nuggets and all that stuff, because you know, at 7 years old, you got to grab a chair, pull it up to the stove to get to the microwave.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, you know, I'm tired of this. So I was like, I'll just get you a little oven and you can cook your food in the oven. So they were able to do that. So all in all, I was still trying to recover from my accident, and I was able to go back to work. I was supposed to go back to work in 8 weeks, but because the foot wasn't healing like it was supposed to, they wanted me to be completely off my foot, so I couldn't have any weight bearing at all. So they put me out again for another, so that was at 8 weeks. So they put me out for another 4 with no weight bearing at all. So I was back on my back.
Oh my goodness.
So, of course, I am still at home with these children by myself and separated. So, at this time, I'm like, okay, I got to do something. And I was actually studying at the time to become a certified colorist. And so I was like, okay, so I'll take the next 4 weeks and finish my studies for the colorist exam. So I studied for that and I went to take that test, and it was like October, November. It was like November I took that test. And no, October, because I got the results back in December. So I took that test in October, but you have to understand, I was wearing a boot in the airport to Chicago in the cold and ice to go take a test. And during this time, of course, I was going through a divorce and I was getting phone calls from my ex about what was going on at home. And I was like, okay, God, listen, I need you to come and give me the strength that I need to get through this test and not think about what's going on at home. So I went to take the test and they were so accommodating with making me, like, if I had to stand, they allowed me to sit and do my drills. Now, I had already practiced my drills sitting down. So I was like, if I got to stand up, now I have to learn a different way to manipulate my comb and things like that. So I got to relearn everything. And they were like, no, you can go ahead and sit. And at the time, I wasn't supposed to stand more than 2 hours. So even at work, they had I had a high chair that I took to work with me too. So I was able to be accommodated at work because I still wore a boot. And that was in October that I took that test. I came home and everything just blew up and he completely moved out of the home. And that was in November. December, I found out that I passed the exam. So I became a certified colorist. And what that means is that I am nationally certified with color under the Redken umbrella. So I'm a Redken certified hair colorist. So if you go on Redken's website, you can see that I am a certified colorist, and people who are looking for someone who is like certified, they would actually come to me. So I was able to gain that from the company. And then I was approached during December and she was like, are you relocatable? And I was like, yeah, just depends on where it's at. And I just never thought anything of it. And so when we went back to work in January, she was like, so there's a location in Bluffton that needs a salon manager. Would you be willing to transfer? And I said, why not? Sure. So I took the position in Bluffton, South Carolina, and I call that my road of discovery, or um, my mom calls it the Potter's House experience.
Yeah.
Because in the Potter's House experience, at home here in South Carolina, well, in Monk's Corner where I'm at, I'm really close with my parents. So my dad lives like a mile from me. And in my old home, he was only 3 miles away from me. So I was only a mile away. I'm only a mile away now. But when I moved to Bluffton, that was 2 hours away. So I moved somewhere where I had no help, and I took 2 boys with me, and I had no help. So I'm like, okay, God, you're going to have to take care of me now because I'm too far away. If something happens, my parents have to drive 2 hours away. And my boys were very, very active in sports, and I was very, very, very active at work. Um, and if you understand starting up a small salon and trying to grow and scale a salon and hire employees, however, hire employees who are very, very, I guess, what's the word I want to say?
Dependable, maybe?
Dependable, yes. Very dependable. So I went through a very, very high retention rate, and trying to find some people that actually worked and gelled and meshed together. So I had to learn my groove. So it took me about a year to learn that. So in that year, I'm like working two shifts at work and taking like a 3-hour lunch break to go home, make sure they got their homework, make sure they got to practice. And then I'm trying to maneuver through friendship, or like, who can I trust with my children to get them home? Who can I trust to get them to their practices? Like, so I formed relationships with people there, and I'm still friends with them to this day. And actually I met, and it's funny how God works, because when I was in college, I have a guy best friend, and when I moved to Bluffton, his cousins actually live in Bluffton, well, Hilton Head. So that's like my extended family when I go to Hilton Head. So it's like he planted my best friend in my life in college, knowing that I would need some support when I moved. So it's kind of like he knew the path that I was going to take. And I remember being very, very frustrated going to work one day, because I'm single with these kids, and I don't know where my life is going. I feel like I'm lost. I feel like God has forgotten about me. And that moment, I was driving on the parkway. There's a parkway in Bluffton. And I look up in the sky, and there was like a pewter, to me, I saw a pewter colored angel. I kid you not. It was like I saw something in the sky, and when I looked it up, it meant redemption. And I was like, okay, so I guess you're redeeming me. So I felt like that was my my road of redemption. So I had to kind of get my life back and learn how to maneuver through life as a single parent, but not look at myself as a statistic. So I found a church home in Bluffton. Well, it's actually on the island, and I actually still follow my pastors there. It's at Central Oak Grove and Hilton Head with Pastor Johnson and Lady Karen. So I actually formed a really close relationship with them, and my kids would go to, so I was able to get them into church again and into Bible study, because that's something that we all did together before I left from Somerville. I was in church with them, and I just felt that we didn't have that connection like I did at home. So it's like, you leave from home, and you're trying to find home away from home, but you have to learn how to make the best out of those situations. And I was in Bluffton for 3 years. And while I was there, so the car accident happened, keep that in mind. So I had to go purchase a car. And when I purchased that car, it was at a side lot. Like, your credit is jacked up. You got to get this car. So it was a cute car though, but I paid I think the car was probably worth like $4,000 or $5,000, but after interest and everything, it was like $14,000. And you don't think about those things when you are going through it, because my truck that I only had like 4 payments left on it. And because the other person didn't have car insurance, they only just paid my truck off. I didn't get anything out of the accident. So I had to put a judgment against that person, but my bills were covered because, I had medical insurance. So that's how that whole situation went. So then I had to get this little lemon, but that lemon did help me get from point A to point B until the transmission started breaking down. So that's where my faith walk had to come in. And this was another issue where I felt broken, because I'm like, okay, so I'm out here in Bluffton and going through this situation, and my credit is jacked up, and I am still trying to pay for, 2 places, just trying to get ahead. And it was very, very difficult, and I got frustrated, and I was like, you know what? Fine, I'll do it. So I just went to Savannah, and you think you need to go to all the big named car lots.
During that time.
Yeah. So I went to this car lot because you get better, they say you get better deals on a brand new car, because you can get the 0% interest, and they sell you all this stuff. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go down here to Baden Nissan and try out for a car. And I told the man that I wanted a truck, and it had to have 4 doors, and it needed to get me from point A to point B, and I wanted my car payment to be $350. So when I did that, he pulls up in a Nissan Versa hatchback with wind down windows. I said, sir, just because this has a backup camera in the car, you think I'm going to purchase And then get this, it was $550 a month. I walked off. I said, I have spent so this was after church. I got there about 1 o'clock. We didn't leave there till 7 o'clock. I said, so you have me sitting here until 7 o'clock, and this is insulting my intelligence. I said, just because I am a woman, don't think I don't know what I'm doing. So I walked away, and 2 weeks later, it was on Halloween. And I get these emails because, you know, once you start looking for a car, you keep getting emails from different car dealers.
Yes.
And then there's another car dealership in Beaufort, and it was called Stokes Beaufort. And I remember my brother used to work at Stokes Beaufort in Beaufort. And I was like, I didn't think about going there. And so I didn't go to the Stokes Honda Beaufort. I went to Stokes Beaufort, the used car center. So when I went to the used car center, I was like, I talked to this man, and I can't remember his name, but he was so helpful. And I went there, I had all my paperwork, and I said, sir, let me tell you something. I said, I'm a single parent. That car that you see out there, it might not get me back home. I said, I need an SUV because my boys play sports. I don't want my payments over $350. I don't have any money to put down. And if you're going to waste my time, just tell me now. And he said, oh, so you want shopping? And I was like, yes. And so he showed, and I said, and I don't want it was a Jeep.
Compass.
Not the Compass. What's the next one?
Patriot.
The next
Liberty.
one. Liberty.
Okay.
I said, don't want the Liberty. And he was like, why? I was like, because my friend had one and hers blew up. So I don't want no problems. So he was like, okay, let's see what we got. So they called the Toyota dealership that was in Bluffton, and the thing is, my apartment complex was maybe like 2 minutes away from that dealership. So he was like, well, we can go pick up your car right now if you want to. And I was like, okay. So we drove back to Bluffton to get the car, and it was a Hyundai Santa Fe. And I financed the car, no money down, and that car took me from Bluffton back to South Carolina. So I had to end up moving back home, and I had to step down from my position as salon manager because my father was having health complications and my mom both at the same time. So I was like, okay, so my lease is going to be up in April. If I move now, I'll be able to get out of my lease and not have to renew my lease. And then I had already moved my oldest son. He had already moved home, but then my youngest son, I moved him home when I moved home. So I still kept the apartment and still went up there just to check on things. And I took my time moving home. And I moved in with my dad. But when I got home, my dad went to the hospital and my mom went to the hospital. So I was going from 2 different places at one time. And it's hard because I'm the only child with my mom, but with my dad, it's kind of like I help take care of him too. So it's like I'm going from one hospital to the next hospital, and neither one of them know what's going on with one another. Well, my mom knew, but she didn't tell me what was going on with her. And she was sick for about 6 months, and I didn't know it. And I didn't know it because I wasn't home. Yeah. And my dad, he has congestive heart failure. So sometimes when his rheumatoid starts acting up, it causes a lot of inflammation in his body, and then the fluid builds up and things like that. So I'm like, you know what? I just need to move home, make sure he's eating right, make sure she's doing what she's supposed to do. So I was able to take like a month off of work. So that was February. So I took a whole month off from February to March just to get me acclimated with being home, getting my parents healthy, and then getting my children settled in. So that was March, and then April, I went back to work. And I knew at that point when I got back there that I wasn't going to be there long, but I didn't know how it was going to happen. And then I kept hearing my friends talk about, they have a coach, and I was like, a coach? What do you need a coach for? And so at this time I was, back home and trying to maneuver through life. And I was like, you know what? I need to go to a women's group. So I started a women's group, and that's where I met my business coach. And I met her there, but at that, our first encounter wasn't about coaching. Our first encounter was about church and finding a church for my boys, because I need them to be comfortable with going to church just like I'm comfortable. So that's something that's important for me. And then I started stalking her. I was like, okay, she's a pastor's wife, but she don't look like a pastor's wife and she don't act like a pastor's wife. I was like, she's really cool, like down to earth, like somebody you can kind of talk to and kind of just tell your because most pastor wives you think of like, very astute and prompt and I'm like,
and
yes,
wrong around them and
yes,
this and that.
yeah, and like, but don't wear that in front of them, like, so I was like, oh, okay. So I stalked her for a while, and I was like, oh, so this is what a coach is, and I was like, she's pretty dope. I was like, so let me just go ahead and slide in her DM and make an appointment, and did not know that that appointment was going to really, really, really change the trajectory of my life and how I think about things and my mindset. Like my mindset is totally different now. My problem was what will people say or what will people think? And that was, I'm going to be honest, that was a lot of reasons why I would say no to a lot of opportunities that puts me out in front of people or in front of an audience, because I don't know, like, what are people going to say about me if I talk about my story, or what are they going to think about me? And that just comes from past hurts and things like that. So I was like, okay, let me just try this coaching thing out. And she said, so what do you want? And I said, well, I want to be able to take care of my children, but also have my own business. And I just listed everything I wanted. And she said, wow, so you already know what you want. And she said, that's half the battle. She said, because half the people that I come in contact with, they can't answer that question. And she said, by you being able to answer that question, what you can do now is you can actually take what you want and put it into goals and actionable steps. So my company had already taught me how to create SMART goals, but I didn't know how to utilize those SMART goals in my personal life. I use it in my business life, but I didn't understand how to translate that into personal. And so she actually just helped me translate it into personal and understand that, yes, everything is a process and you got to go through. And that was in January of 2018. So August of 2018, I get a DM from a fellow stylist in the industry that says she was opening up a suite in Monk's Corner and if I would like to come and join her in one of the suites. And I was like, this is a great opportunity. I would love this opportunity, but I can't at this time because I have children that I have to take care of. And I don't think that that would be a great move for me. So you heard that, right?
Yes, I in your own capability,
In my own capabilities. So I was like, okay. And that was in August. And I was like, but I'm going to go and get my hair done. And so I had her do my hair, and that I was telling her, why I felt like I couldn't. And everything I said I couldn't, she changed it into saying, but why can't you? And she told me her story of how she moved from a building that was a little bit of money to a building that was a whole lot of money. And she couldn't afford either, she couldn't afford it there, but she went on faith. So I had to let my faith start working. And, faith without works is kind of dead. Well, no, it's dead. So am I going to sit here at this job knowing I'm outgrowing it and I'm just outgrowing it? And then I had a position, which I became the artistic educator. So I was a trainer for the company, but then they started changing things around. So my position was actually phased out. So I would need to reapply for a new position. And the position that I wanted to apply for, my salon manager applied for it as well after she said she wasn't going to. So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to fight over this. I'm just going to sit back and allow God to move. And however he moves, that's what I'm going to do. So in October, I signed my lease at the suites, and November 1st, I launched it, but I was officially in the building on February 19th of 2019. So all of this is my road to brokenness to blessed, right? Mm-hmm. So throughout this time, I'm thinking that I'm not going to be able to support my children and my family because, you know, when you leave a place, I believe in leaving in decency and in order. And I did not take any of my clients from that company. Even though I could have gotten on the phone, I could have copied their names and all that. I didn't do that because I said, if God wants me to leave this place, he's going to create an opportunity for me in my own business. So what I did was I started learning how to use social media, although I'm not as consistent as I need to be. I started using social media. People started finding me. They found me on their own. They would stalk my page, look for my name. So I made my profile public so that people can find me if they wanted to come to me. So it wasn't like I was telling them I'm leaving. They would have to find me. So in February, I was in my suite, and then I was outgrowing my space. Like it was not enough space for me to take care of my clients, and I just felt like it was just too small. And so I was like, okay, God, so what's next? And in January, I went to the hair show in California, January of this year. And I was having a conversation with the girl that braids my hair, and she was like, you know, Tyra, whatever you want, it's already yours. You haven't asked for it yet. And the reason why you haven't asked for it yet is because you're scared to ask for it, because if it happens, you're going to be like, well, I can't do this. But she said, it's not in your will, it's his will. So what I want you to do is I want you to go look for the building. And she said, I'm actually going to pray for you in church today. And she sent me the prayer that she put in church that Sunday. So that was in January. 2 weeks later, I'm driving, minding my own business. And I always say something say, but my mom said that's not something, that's God say. So I was driving and minding my own business, going to my suite, and God was like, go straight. And I said, okay, go straight. Why would I go straight? And I was like, okay. He's like, right. And he's like, okay, turn on Carolina, which you can get to my old suite from Carolina. So I was like, okay. So there's this pink building with a for rent sign in front of it. I said, you have got to be kidding me. And I was on the phone with a realtor at the time, my realtor friend. She's actually from Bluffton. She's one of my friends I've met. And I was asking her about commercial real estate. And then I come up on this building, and she was like, get off the phone with me now and call them. And so I got the building, and the whole issue with that building, it just kind of fell in my lap because somebody else had looked at it first. And also then I looked at it, and then the other girl that was in the suite with me, she was looking at it too, unbeknownst to me. But he said that I believe in fairness, and whoever looks at it, he goes in order. And the first person that was looking at it, they didn't get it because they felt that it was, the wife didn't work, but the husband did. But the wife had an online store, and the husband was kind of shaky of committing to a 2-year lease when the wife wasn't working. So, I mean, I understand. I get it. And then this man actually came to my suite. I was doing hair, and told me, he was like, the building is yours. I said, now, you know what?
That fell out.
I was like, all I gotta do is say what I want, and then it happens.
Yes.
So that was in February. I was so March 13th was the first day I started in my suite my salon, because I had to wait on state board and all that stuff, right? So then comes COVID. April 15th, I had to close my doors. I had only worked 3 weeks in my salon and I had to close my doors. So that's another time that I was broken, or so I thought. And he allowed me to have time off again. And this time off was different from the last time because I wasn't crippled. However, I was stuck in the house minding my money because you can't go out and do all what you want to do. One,
Yeah.
you got to have your mask on, you got to have your gloves on. But the two, I don't have any income coming in. I'm not working at corporate anymore where I get a paycheck every 2 weeks. So Tyra, you're going to have to learn how to manage this money. So in that whole COVID situation, I actually launched another business within my business. And I had already been taking classes up until that point on retail. And I spent a whole year's coaching course on retail because my coach in retailing, she taught me how to retail to retire. And when you're a stylist, some stylists don't think about the end game. And when you're going into entrepreneurship, you need to have your end game in mind. You need to know what your end game is so that you know what you need to do. So I was like, okay, so what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? So a lot of people were upset because they didn't qualify for unemployment. And I'm sitting here and I got unemployment. And that's because I kept great records. And when I filed my taxes, I filed my taxes. I paid my taxes. And then I was able to get my credit card debt. I paid off 6 credit cards in COVID.
Woohoo.
And I sold retail. And that's how I kept my salon afloat, is I sold retail. I was selling combs, brushes, clips, wigs, products, you name it. If I can get it, I'm selling it. So I was like, okay, God, you gave me this retail license for a reason. So now I understand why you set your businesses up the correct way. So COVID happened, and then I had to shut down again in July because the 4th was coming up and I knew the numbers were going to spike again. So for my safety and the safety of my clients, I decided to take a step back away from the chair. And in that time, I was able to kind of rebrand the Beauty Lounge. So now the Beauty Lounge is a boutique and lounge, and also help with revamping the Gold Slayers tribe. So I also bought a new car in COVID.
Blessing after blessing after blessing. Yes,
And
girl.
I paid off the Hyundai.
That's amazing.
So that is my brokenness to blessed testimony.
And I love it, Tara. And I had no idea up until recently that you were selling like boutique items. I'm like, is that a dress? Is that earrings? I'm like, I'm about to be in her inbox too in a minute because I'm gonna need some new ones. But I love it. There's so many little nuggets that you were sharing that I was able to relate to as well. Look back at my notes here real quick. You mentioned, mom in wheelchair when you first got into the car accident. And I was going to ask you what the injury was, but I think you said it was your foot was injured. Was that the
Yep,
major
they
injury?
called it a Liz Frank fracture. However, my foot was broke. I could not put
The
no
terms right.
So if that was a fracture, baby, that thing hurt.
Oh my goodness, I can imagine going from standing and walking around to being, like you said, put on your back and can't do anything. But God has an amazing way of bringing his daughters back to him.
Mm-hmm.
And even when we don't see what he's doing, why things around us are happening, granted, many of the broken stories that we hear here on this podcast, a lot of them come from childhood trauma of physical abuse, some sexual abuse and stuff like that. There's different forms of trauma. And trauma is, stuff that comes in and makes you feel broken. It doesn't matter what form it's in, trauma is trauma.
Right.
And so God has an amazing way of getting his daughters back to his heart. And let me back up for a second again because I messed up here. When I spoke about the sexual trauma, physical abuse trauma, that's not from God. That's not from him at all. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is he will use certain situations
Right.
that was meant for evil to turn them around for good, to bring us back to him. So I hope you find encouragement in that. Like you saw that, I can imagine like having my foot broken, having your mom in the wheelchair, going through a divorce or separation, trying to take care of two children, trying to start your career and like start to exceed because you got this thing in your heart that's burning. Like, I gotta go do something. I got this desire. And then the enemy is coming at you left and right with all these things to try to keep you small.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to keep us small.
Right.
So many times we allow these situations that happen to us to determine our future.
Right.
But Tyra shows us today that if we are determined, if we continue to put one foot in front of the other and choose, make a decision, it's a choice to not give up, to
Right.
not allow your situations to define you, you will be able to walk it out. You will be able to go to excel into the freedom that's already yours.
Mm-hmm.
It's a journey. And as we listen to Tyra, she mentioned that she didn't have any money at some point in time to buy groceries. There was a point in time in my life, and I'm sharing too, when my daughter was a baby, I was working in corporate. And then I had my daughter, and then I went to go back, but they dropped my pay less than what I was making before I became a manager. So I was making a certain amount before I became a manager, became manager, made another amount, and then I dropped down and they took it to less than what I earned up until that time. And so I had to quit. I think I'm not gonna put up with that. That's ridiculous. I earned all of that and you're gonna take it all from me. So having a newborn that needs diapers, that needs formula. Diapers and formula are not expensive, and we didn't qualify for any government assistance because my husband made just a tiny bit too much, but yet it wasn't enough to cover everything, right? So taking that $40 a week to go buy groceries, I didn't know how it was going to work, but God came in and multiplied it somehow. $40 for a whole week's worth of groceries. What can you really buy with that today?
Right.
Not a lot,
Not
right?
eggs and milk.
Yes. But I was looking back on it this morning with my daughter. We were just having Bible study and talking, and it's amazing how his provision works. He comes in. You may not see it with your natural eye,
Right.
but he is working behind the scenes and making it happen. Yes, absolutely. So I love that you said you were laying there, and then this word comes off the TV about if you express, he will send it overnight.
Yeah, let's go back to that.
Yes.
So I also purchased a house 6 months after I came back home. So I did leave that out. So I bought a house 6 months after I came back home. So my dad allowed me to stay with him for 6 months. So for 6 months, I just stacked my money. And I was able to put down a huge down payment and get this house. So the blessing in this house is that, one, it's an express home. That's what it's called. It's by D.R. Horton, but it's an express home. And the second blessing is the home that they put on the paperwork is 108 Wild Holly Drive. But the home that he showed me was a different house around the corner that did not have the upgrades that this house has. And it did not come with a refrigerator. It didn't come with a stove. So it was just like a basic model. Mm-hmm. So this home has the screened-in porch, the upgraded floors, the upgraded cabinets, and the stove and the refrigerator and the microwave. And I was able to get this house for the price of the other house because I had already signed the paperwork.
Nice. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. You were mentioning home, and then you mentioned earlier about Halloween that you went to this car dealership. Halloween, and I'm gonna go back into my experience with something similar, is we decided to go for buying a house in 2014. Had no idea what would happen. I never thought that I could own a house that had stairs, that was in a neighborhood, that was what I called the dream house, right? And so I was like, my husband was kind of like scared that he didn't think that we could get it, and I was like, trust. I'm gonna put my faith. I'm gonna exhaust my faith as much as I can. If I get to the end and God says no and the door closes, then that's it. We'll know then. And so that Halloween in 2014 is when we closed on our house, and then God called us someplace else to go back home to where I grew up in Cottageville to sell our house. And when we sold our house, we closed again on October 31st. And I'm interested to see, because you mentioned November earlier before we started talking. We haven't gotten in the house yet, but I'm interested to see this Halloween what may happen, right? It'd be very interesting. Sorry, my screen froze for a second.
That's okay.
But it's really, I love it how God uses certain things, certain stories, and like you mentioned, your friend from college had was it a cousin that was in Bluffton as well?
Yeah.
A cousin that was in Bluffton. And I was talking about that with my daughter this morning about how if you begin to look at the pieces that he puts together for your life, you will see that he's been in it all along. And that's a beautiful thing. Let's see. My mom, you said your father had congestive heart failure. My mom had congestive heart failure too. And that's not an easy thing to deal with because my mom was one that she always had a smile on her face. Like that woman went through some pain and she smiled through that pain and never complained one time. But I can imagine what she was going through. So I can imagine what it was like to come back home. You got your mom being sick and she didn't tell you that she was sick. You got your dad being sick. Like all these things were still trying to come at you because you were trying to step out of that box that the enemy was trying to keep you in. And you were determined to keep pushing. So, and that's the thing, ladies, if you're listening, when we decide to make a decision to go after everything that God has for us, we make a decision to forgive our past, we make a decision to step into what he's calling us to step into our true identity. The enemy sees, he hears, and he's going to come after. Because he knows the power that we will have whenever we begin to walk in truth. So I want you to be encouraged that if stuff is starting to happen to you, things are starting to happen when you're trying to keep going forward, take it as, okay, I see you. I see what you're trying to do, but you keep pushing forward. You keep pushing forward. Make a decision to not give up. I've got a whole book of things that the enemy throws at me, or just life throws at me. Not everything comes from the enemy. Like we gotta make that true too. Some things that we have to walk through in order for us to, I used the word this morning, I forgot it now. In order for us to build endurance for what's to come. Kind of like running a race. Like whenever you start running, you may not have the heart condition to go the mile, but after you keep training, after you keep going, after you keep building more endurance, you can go 2 miles, 3 miles, 4 miles, and then how much ever you want. And Tyra mentioned about like I don't think she said trauma. She mentioned the brokenness that she felt whenever she found the coach. The coach had said that she was feeling all of these things because of, I thought I wrote it down, but I think I missed it. I wrote down heart trauma, something that you were dealing from the past.
Yeah, so dealing with what people would say about you or how people perceive, like me caring what people said or think about me. And how she put it was, are they paying your bills? Are they putting money in your bank account?
That's so true. That's enough to like make you think.
With it. Yep.
That's really good.
And it's something that I wanted to say because I heard this on one of my professional development calls the other night, where you were saying that it was a choice, like women need to make a choice. Well, one of the things I heard were the 3 Ds: decide, declare, and dominate. When you decide on something, that means you are cutting off and killing off anything that's going to come in your way of what you have decided. And then when you declare it, that means you are claiming it and you're writing it to make it plain, because that's what it says in Habakkuk 2:2. Write the vision and make it plain upon tablets. And then the third thing was dominate. That means you're going to take action and you're going to execute. So that's where that faith and that works comes in at, is you're going to put that faith to work. So the 3 words I'm going to leave with the women is decide, declare, and dominate.
I love that. That's really good. It's really good. And then I love when you were going toward getting or leaving the street, or the one that someone had asked you to come into, and then you said you can't because this, you can't do this because that, you can't do this. And then she said you won't have it because you didn't ask for it. Was that the same situation?
Yep.
Okay.
Right. And then you can't do things in your own strength either.
That's right. And there's a scripture in the Bible that says, you have not because you asked not. Yes. Yes. And I love what she said too, because she said scared to ask for it. Like, she broke it down even further. And that spoke to me, like, you have not because you ask not, and you don't ask because you're scared of what might happen, and you got to like fill those shoes after it happens, right? Almost scared of that success.
Right. But to why? Is it you're scared because you don't know what's going to happen, or because you don't want to do the work?
Could you repeat that? You were cutting out just a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's either you're scared because you don't know what's going to happen next, because you're trying to figure out, you're trying to figure it out, or are you scared because you don't want to do the work? So that's what it's coming down to. You got to do the work. You got to put the work in.
That's so true. Because when we find out how much work it takes to make something happen, to make something work, to develop that thing that we're going after, it can make you run.
Baby.
Oh my goodness. But you gotta be determined and say yes ahead of time. Before you even see what it's gonna take, just go ahead and say yes. Yes, I'm gonna do whatever it takes, right? I was gonna ask you too, during that time before your separation, because you said you came back to the church, during that time of your separation, did you leave the church at all?
No, actually, I got closer into the church, and that's when right before I left, I was attending a church here with me and my boys. So my boys went on Tuesday nights, and I would go on Wednesday nights. So I had women's study on Wednesday night, and then my boys had Tuesday night service. And then when I would go to church, they went to their Sunday service, and then I went to my service. So we were in church, but it was like when I left from here, that's when I kind of didn't have anywhere to go. So I had to find my way. So that was about 6 months. It took me about 6 months to find a church home.
Okay. And during that time when you were home and you felt broken after that accident, because you said that the truck was almost paid off, and then you got hit with the news that they're not going to give you anything else other than pay the truck off, and then you're going through that separation and you're sitting and you can't do anything physically, what kind of like thoughts were coming to your mind, if you remember anything?
At that time, I felt one, embarrassed, because it wasn't like I was divorced at that time. I was still married, and he was still kind of like in the home, but back and forth kind of. So I was embarrassed because here I am laying up and I need help. And for whatever differences that we have, this is a time I need help. And I didn't have help. So that happened. And I also felt like, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong to deserve this? What did I do wrong to blah, all those, what did I do? So I was blaming myself at that time. And what I understand now is that God gives and God takes away. So evidently, if he took it, if it's gone, that means it wasn't meant for me to have it. So I had to be okay with me being a single parent, which is what I am now. So I had to be okay with that. And so that's kind of like what, how my life was looking at that moment.
Gotcha. And so many women, are faced with that. They don't know what life will look like after a divorce or after a separation or after the fact of whatever is happening. And if you're not careful, you can set yourself up for even more trauma, more failure. Had Tyra sat in that brokenness and began to feel sorry for herself day in and day out, her life would look a lot different today. I mean, somebody could have come in and rescued her, God, and some people that he would send, but it could have taken a lot longer for that process to happen had she, in those moments, stayed in and wallowed around for a long time. So many things happen to us, people. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say it like that. Forgive me. So many things happen to us, ladies, and we have a choice. We always have a choice. I can't speak on a lot of the trauma that many of you go through, but I do know, and so many women that I've interviewed can. They have the authority to walk and speak on that because they walk those same shoes themselves. We have a choice to make. Is this brokenness my reality? As before I started this podcast, I started breaking down brokenness. Is it a feeling or is it something that we actually are? And I couldn't find anything that lined up with I am broken. It was a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
All of these things, we feel broken, but the truth of him, a father, heavenly father, he says, I am whatever we need. I am
Whatever
enough.
you need.
Yes, I am. He said, Jesus said, I'm the great I am. So I'll be saying this over and over, if we don't feel like we're enough, he's saying he is enough. So we can connect the dots and connect with that. If we say that we're not, or we don't feel smart enough or educated enough, just like Tyra said, whenever she first went to this one particular job, she wasn't qualified. But God said, I am.
Qualified.
Yes, so he was qualified, so she was able to connect with that. So we just have to change our words sometimes because our words have power. And I was talking with someone this morning about how powerful our words can be. And when we begin to speak stuff out into the atmosphere, out into the universe, we're speaking it into existence. Like when the first time came, God spoke life into existence. Let there be light. And then there was light. Yes. So be careful with what we say. Be careful with how we say it. And I just want to encourage you guys to just dig deep. Find some people to connect with. Find some girlfriends to connect with. And if you don't have any, if everybody around in your circle is just kind of like not where you want to be right now, maybe they're in the dumps too, ask God. Say, Lord, please send me some women. Send me some women that are after your heart. Even if you're not after his heart the way you want to be just yet, but you have that craving, that desire in there. He will send them, I promise you. And you just pick them up, like grab them. Like, okay, I think this woman might be who I need to attach myself to. So it's like almost like Tyra said, she found that coach. And she just felt different. She was a pastor's wife, but she just felt different. And so she like slid onto her inbox kind of, right? So that's what we have to do whenever we see these women that basically like have a light on them. That's the light of Jesus. And we're seeing something different. You follow that light because Jesus said he wants us to be the light of the world. We're going to be the salt of the world. So you follow that light and he will be right there.
You'll be
You
right
find
there.
him. So, Tyra, if there's a woman today that is feeling just so lost, feeling like she doesn't have enough, feeling like she doesn't know where the next paycheck is going to come from, the next meal is going to come from, she's a single mom, what can you say to her today that can possibly ignite a fire in her, or something that she can do today to kind of start walking in that freedom that's already hers?
So I have two things to say. One is what my grandmother told me when I was going through my divorce. And I lost my grandmother last year, August, so this year made a year. And I would remember the conversations that we had while I was going through. And one of the things that she told me was, baby, you can fall, but don't wallow in it. So when you said wallow, that made me think of what my grandmother told me. You don't have to stay there. So that's the first thing, is you don't have to stay there. When you fall, you can get back up again. And then there's a gospel song for the second point. It's called After This. There will be a praise after this. There will be glory after this. So what that meant to me was the sun is going to go down, but it's got to come back up in the morning. So after this, what is your after this going to look like? Are you going to stay wallowing, or are you going to have glory?
That's really good. That's really good. And I always have this thing that I say to a lot of women is that, you know what, we all have days. We all have moments, we all have months, some things that knock us off our behinds, knock us not our behinds, off our feet.
Right.
But it's okay to feel it. It's okay to acknowledge that it's happening. It's okay to have a day. Eat the chips, watch the Netflix for a little bit, stay in the pajamas, but the next day,
Get
I
up.
need you to get up. Don't stay there. Because the more you stay there, you're going to begin isolating yourself, and that allows the enemy to come in and really
Yes.
just feed you more lies, feed you more nonsense, and just keep you wallowing.
Right.
And then when Tyra mentioned the song, After This, say the song part again, like after this.
There will be a praise after this.
There will be a praise after this. Yes.
And there'll be a testimony after this. There will be a breakthrough after this. So
And that is so true, because as I look back into the things that I've walked through, the things that I've done, in the moment, it didn't feel good. In the moment, it didn't look good. But after this, I get to look back and say, oh Lord, you brought me through some craziness. Oh Lord, you transformed me. Oh Lord, I'm not who I used to be.
right.
And ladies, I want you to have that. We all have these testimonies. And I was reading a scripture this morning too, like I did a lot this morning. And so many times, like God was talking to Jeremiah, and he was kind of telling him about the people of Israel. He did all these things for them. He brought them through the wilderness. He brought them from slavery in Egypt. He brought them from nonsense. He provided manna for them every single day. He got them through everything, and they saw miracle after miracle. But after they got to the promised land, they denied him again and kind of left him, I think, if I got this right. And then, you know, God gives us those testimonies, but we're supposed to hold on to them and remember them so that we can continue praising. Don't forget what he's done.
Right.
Remember what he's done. All right, I don't want to turn into preaching, so this has been really good, Tyra.
It has been real good.
I want you to, if any woman wants to follow you, get your hair done maybe in here in Charleston, just share your Instagram handles, Facebook. You can also share the Ghost Slayers Tribe. I'm actually the official photographer for the Ghost Slayers Tribe this year. And so share those handles.
All right, so with the Goal Slayers tribe, that is a tribe of women who are all about God, goals, and growth. So God is our center base. So if that is one of you, head over to Facebook, like our page, The Goal Slayers, and you can join our private community. It's called the Goal Slayers Tribe Members Only. However, you're going to need to go to our website, which is www.goalslayerstribe.com, and register to join. The registration is free for the whole year if you sign up on by September 15th. If not, after that, it's going to be the regular price. So that is what we have going on for our members right now. So you want to get in. Oh, but guess what? It's going to be over by then. Well, just go and sign up. And then we have an online group called the Goal Slayers Tribe as well. So you can go ahead and like that page. And as Crystal said, she is our ambassador, our photography sponsor for the year. So I am so excited about Crystal because she does some amazing, amazing work. And we are so looking forward to having her as our official photographer for this year. So follow me personally. I am on Facebook as Tyra Berry. You can also find the Beauty Lounge on Facebook, the Beauty Lounge on Facebook. And on Instagram, it's at the BTY Lounge or at Miss Tyra B on Instagram. So those are my handles. Oh, and on Instagram, we are the Goal Slayers Tribe.
Yay, awesome. I'm excited for the rest of this year because 2020 is not getting us down. There is still goodness and greatness that will happen in 2020.
2020 is still lit. For me, I didn't cancel 2020. So a lot of people canceled 2020, but 2020 has been good to me. This is a year of clarity.
Absolutely, absolutely. Tara, thank you so much for joining me on this episode. It's been an honor to sit with you.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So guys, that's a wrap for today's episode of Brokenness to Freedom. So I hope you join us next time. And until then, take care.